guys, thanks for tuning in. It's Joe here. We're in the hot tent today. I think I'll do episode 2 of Get to Know Joe. Episode 1 went over very well, and it's almost it's about 10,000 views now in 4 days. So that's really good for me, especially just for me sitting there talking about myself. So I appreciate the views. I appreciate the fact that you guys do want to hear this kind of stuff, that you do want to get to know me a little bit more. And on the last one, I mentioned something about having a Les Stroud story. And I got overwhelming amount of replies saying yes, they'd like to hear the Les Stroud story. So this is my Les Stroud story. Back upon a time, so about, I don't know, man, 12 years ago, roughly. Maybe even a little bit before that. There was nothing for me. The internet was there. It just wasn't readily available for people. At least I didn't know of forums and groups and stuff like that of people talking about bushcraft or the outdoors, survival, wilderness skills, stuff like that. So my whole library and people that I knew that did this kind of stuff was just through books that I read on the internet, books that I borrowed from the library, boys and girls, that used to be a thing. Things I watched on PBS, like Dick Proennke's Alone in the Wilderness on PBS, when they do like they want to give them donations and stuff, they play that. What else? Ray Mears was on PBS as well. Survival Stories, Heroes of Telemark, Bushcraft. He had like 3 different shows that were on PBS, and then out of nowhere, OLN started playing this thing called Survivorman, and I am blown away by this, right? Because Ray Mears is awesome, but he's bringing his gear. He's British. He's well known. He's a little bit farther out of my reach, farther out of my knowledge. And Les Stroud, Survivorman, I come to find out, lives a few hours north of me, right? And he's out there doing all this. This guy became my hero. Like, I'm talking like I can't even explain it. I had to find out everything this guy did. I went back, I found at the library his Snowshoes in Solitude VHS, not DVD, because DVDs back then were a hot commodity still. So I found out all as much as I could about him. I was obsessed with watching the show, Survivorman, and I would watch it all the time. So I actually did a bunch of research on the internet when still the internet was not a big thing, at least for me. And I found Les Stroud's phone number, okay? And I was just blown away. Like, what am I going to say to the guy, though, right? I'm just doing all this research. I'm just trying to find some way to connect with him, some way to find a way to pursue this as my career, as something that I wanted to do in the future. And I thought, he's the guy to talk to, right? So I actually found his number on the internet, like I was saying. His website was like this rinky-dinky. If you've ever seen my website, my Joe Robinet Bushcraft website, it was worse than that. Okay, mine's pretty bad. It was like a couple phone numbers, a place where you could buy a DVD, or a DVD of his Snowshoes in Solitude, or a DVD of his Survivorman, or whatever. So, found his number on there, called him. He answered. I think it was him. A guy answered, and I got so nervous I hung up the phone. It sounds a little creepy and stalkerish. It could have been, maybe, but that's how I felt. I just didn't know what to say to the guy. What am I supposed to say? Oh, I like your TV show. I live in Windsor. Yeah, I don't know. It just seemed too far to me. So I put that on the back shelf for a second, and just continued just soaking up as much as I could, just knowledge, bushcraft, survival, all that stuff. And again, went on the internet and found an address to write him to. So before an email and all that stuff, the norm was to write a letter. So I wrote him a letter, just explaining to him how big of an impact he had on my life, because he had, and what kind of things I could do in the future to become more going in that direction for a career and things like that. So I wrote him a letter. Didn't really expect anything after that. A couple months later, I get this big letter back from Africa, a big envelope titled "From Africa," and in it was a signed, autographed picture of Les Stroud and a huge letter with him wrote back to me, all just as much info as he could give me in a letter, right? And he's a busy guy, and he wrote it from Africa on a shoot of Survivorman. How cool is that? Okay, and in the letter he wrote back like, I don't usually write back, blah 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 blah, all this stuff, but this spoke to me or whatever. I actually looked for that letter today, like for 2 hours in my basement. I can't find it. I know I still have it. I definitely didn't get rid of it. I just can't find it. I wanted to show you guys. Maybe in the future, if I find it, I'll put it on a video. But yeah, so I got that, and I was ecstatic. I was just tickled pink to have that. To my hero actually acknowledge me and write me back and sign a picture and give me tips and tricks. He actually told me to go to the school called School in the Woods, I believe, by David Arama, who was one of his teachers, Arama. And never ended up doing that. Things got in the way. Anyways, fast forward like 8 years, and I'm up in Huntsville. Right, so we had moved from Windsor up to Huntsville, up to Sault Ste. Marie to go to school. Then we had moved down halfway back to Windsor to Huntsville. And Huntsville is 40 minutes outside of Algonquin Park. It's cottage country, basically. We lived in a cedar log cabin there with a wood stove for our heat. It was really cool. We had a moose walk through our yard a couple times. Really nice place. So I'm really getting into the bushcraft and the outdoor stuff. And like this is how, after I'd gone to college for it, and I decided I want to take a course. So I'm looking all around me. The only course that I can find, there's one by Canadian Bushcraft, Caleb Musgrave, or Oz. I'm sure a couple people have heard of him. And I was his first student. So I drove a couple hours to the Hiawatha First Nations area, took a class with them, talked about Les Stroud a lot, come back a couple days later, and me and the wife decided to go to Blockbuster to rent a movie. So we go. We're both separate in the aisles, separate aisles. All of a sudden, my wife walks up to me with a beet red face, and she goes, "Les Stroud is 2 aisles over." And I'm like, "No way!" You know what I mean? My heart just skips a beat. He lives in Huntsville. Okay, maybe I forgot to mention that he's moved around that area, but at that time he lived in Huntsville. So it wasn't hard to believe that he was there. It was just very exciting. So the wife comes up to me, tells me that, and I'm like, man, I gotta go say hi to him. But I don't want to just be like, "Hey, Les Stroud," you know what I mean? Like another just like groupie or fanboy or whatever, which I am completely. I just didn't want him to think that. So I needed an in. And right away my head thinks, just tell him he wrote you a letter from Africa. I'm like, that's an in. That's a conversation starter for sure. Oh man, it's getting toasty. So I walk over, and he's with his son Logan, and he's young at the time. And I don't want to bother him too much or anything, but again, I have to say hi. So I say, "Les, hi, you wrote me a letter from Africa once." And he looks at me, he says, "I did?" He's like, "I didn't do that much." And I said, "No," and I explained it to him. He said, "Oh, yeah. And I'm not sure if he actually remembered or if he was just humoring me, because this, again, was 8 years prior. But really, really down-to-earth guy. Talked to him for a good 5 minutes in there. Again, I was the one to kind of separate it because I didn't want to seem needy. I didn't want to seem like I was holding him up. He was with his son, you know what I mean? Who am I to break up that time? So, talked to him for a couple minutes. He actually says, "I'm having a book signing at the Bookshelf, which is a bookstore in Huntsville, in a couple days. Why don't you come?" Definitely. I'll see you there, Les. So I go. We separate ways. I was just tickled pink. I actually called up Caleb, the guy I took the course with, because it was the day I left. I told him. He was just blown away too. And yeah, a couple days later, I went to the book signing with him, and there was a full house. I spent a bunch of time with his son Logan that day, just talking to him for a couple hours. I waited till the end. I gave him a letter. I was really happy, just telling him how much he's influenced my life and all that stuff. Got to spend a little bit of time with him there too. But that's my Les Stroud story. Pretty cool, especially for me, for him having such an influence on my life early on. It does kind of suck now what he's doing, saying about Alone, saying that we had producers and food and camera crew and stuff with us on the show. We didn't. That's just a fact. We didn't. We were alone, and he doesn't believe that, and he's saying in social media and other places that is the truth. And really, I don't think that he should be doing that, because it's not the truth. The same with him putting down Bear Grylls and stuff. Les Stroud, you are up here. Bear Grylls, you are down here. You have no kind of connection in the middle. There's not even a question in my book. So Les, just keep taking the higher road, man. Don't worry about the other people. You are doing it. You were the first. You go out and survive for 7 days, however long now, by yourself. Film it and do a great job. Don't worry about Bear Grylls, and don't say that things are fake that you don't know that aren't. You know what I mean? Alone was real. My experience on Alone was legit. So, hope you guys enjoyed this little Les Stroud chat. Yeah, you asked for it, so there it was. We'll be back with another episode of Get to Know Joe, and maybe next month. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.